Today I'll be discussing with you how Hanson used StreetLight to collect turning movement counts during COVID-19. So the first project I'll be going over is the Brownsville Signal Modernization Plan we did with the city of Brownsville, Texas. So this project consisted of an analysis of the delay and capacity of all 200 signals throughout the city. And through our first stage of work, we had to analyze the capacity and delay as well as some other features, and we prioritized the signals throughout the city based on which of them needed updated timings and infrastructure the most. The second stage of work included providing new signal timings for the 50 signals that we deemed the highest priority. And on the next slide, we can see that by the time we reached the second stage of work, COVID-19 hit the US. And obtaining accurate traffic counts was no longer feasible because the traffic that the city was experiencing was highly irregular and not representative of what we expected the traffic would be in the future. So under the assumption that traffic volumes would eventually return to a similar state to what they were before COVID, StreetLight became the perfect tool to allow us to retroactively find traffic turning volumes. So our process was to collect the traffic turning volumes using StreetLight. We used an origin destination analysis type and set up multiple pass-through zones throughout each intersection. So these pass-through zones were set up into two zone sets for each intersection to capture the vehicles coming into an intersection and those leaving. On a typical four-leg two-way intersection, you would see four distinct zones because vehicles are entering and exiting the intersection in the same way. However, there's intersections like this one shown here where there was more than four legs or there was one-way roads, and in those cases you would have irregular zone configurations. So the zone setup varies per intersection per configuration, but once all the zones were properly oriented and positioned for each intersection, we were able to enter each zone set or each zone set pair, because there's entering and exiting for each intersection, into an analysis that in our case collected volumes from 2019, the most recent year of data that wasn't affected by COVID, and in the months of February, March, April, and October, because these were the most representative months of the entire year. They had no major holidays or major vacations that would cause traffic to be irregular throughout those months. And we also analyzed our traffic volumes for the smallest time increment that was available in StreetLight, and that is hourly volumes. And we analyzed all of our volumes for mid-weekdays, as in Tuesday through Thursday. And this is the zone set for this specific intersection. This was both the entering and exiting. All right. So for the results, when the analysis was complete, there's visualization features in StreetLight that were able to represent the data in a variety of formats. You can see here some of them. There was bar charts that could show the highest volume movements by leg. There's heat matrices, chord diagrams, etc. Looking at these visualizations was very helpful in making sure that all the inputs were correct from the previous stages, getting a sense of the general traffic trends, and double checking your work. However, for our purposes, we ultimately exported all the data to Excel, and that's where we really dug into that data and were able to do further analysis on it. So interpreting our results. After exporting the raw traffic data to Excel, we did volume balancing for all of the volumes per roadway segment. So for reference, we split up all of the roadway segments into about 5 to 6 signals. It was like a chain of 5 to 6 signals along each roadway, and we balanced these volumes per these corridors. So while balancing these volumes, it's important to note that we allowed for a much higher imbalance tolerance than we typically would when using single day traffic counts, because we understand that the traffic counts we're using are an average over multiple months. And in our case, in only 1 year. However, the time span could be much longer. So we did allow for a higher volume imbalance tolerance. Um, However, when we were done balancing the volumes, the data was ready to be implemented into our modeling softwares, and those modeling softwares ran perfectly, and we were able to retime our signals based on these turning movement counts. All right, so the next project I'll be discussing with you that we use StreetLight for is the Mahomet Road and Railroad crossing design that we did for Mahomet, Illinois. So this project consisted of designing an extension for Mahomet Road in the city. The roadway extension created a railroad crossing with a Norfolk Southern Railroad, and it also created multiple new access points and entrances to businesses and other buildings in the area or along its path. So the problem in this case for this project was we needed to project turning movement volumes onto the roadway extension that is yet to be built. So we have no existing data to grow or to project. So to do this, we needed to redistribute existing turning movement volumes and find newly generated volumes that would be generated because of this extension. And again, due to COVID-19, we had no existing data to go off of, and we had no means by which to collect it. It wasn't going to be accurate. The traffic trends are highly irregular now. So again, we assumed that once eventually, the traffic trends would resume to what they were previous to COVID-19. And so StreetLight was the perfect tool to help us redistribute the existing volumes. All right, so the process here was similar to the one we used in Brownsville, but it had a couple extra steps. So we did use origin destination analysis types again to find the traffic volumes on all the existing intersections that surrounded this roadway extension. And the difference is we also used a zone activity analysis method to come up with the newly generated traffic volumes that we expect to be created because of this extension. So we analyzed the trips that were taken from specific origins in the area to specific destinations along the new route during the peak hours. So for example, we found which neighborhoods we believed would use the road extension to make trips to Mahomet Seymour Community School, which is on Churchill Road. Um, and we used StreetLight's zone activity analysis to find the number of trips made from these neighborhoods to the school during the peak hours. So these were the trips that we expected to now be using the new roadway extension. So we found the existing turning movement counts on all the surrounding intersections, and by using those, we were able to redistribute the movements that we expected to use the new roadway extension, and we added those existing redirected movements to the generated movements to get a volume or a turning movement volume that we expected to move along the new extension. All right, so the results were displayed very similarly to the Brownsville model. We had multiple visualization methods, bar charts, matrices, and chord diagrams, but again, we ultimately exported all of our data to Excel, and we balanced all those volumes in Excel. We actually did the redistributing of traffic in Excel, and we added the generated volumes to the redistributed volumes all in Excel. So finally, interpretation of results. As I stated, we used the turning movement volumes and the new trip volumes to predict the volumes that the new intersections created by this roadway extension would experience. And you can see some of the values we found using StreetLight and some of the redirected volumes.